Tell me something. So, when I was running AppsFly,
Oh, by the way, we need to talk about AppsFly. So I'll tell you my version of AppsFly. We used to hang weekly basis trying to work on that product. For like the sake of disclosure for those watching, I think we were trying to put a chip into a cricket ball,
yeah,
and we were trying to record its revolution to calculate how much spin it could create.
Right.
Right. And I remember getting these bands out from
yeah.
US.
Where are they?
I think the chips are with me somewhere in some suitcase. I
I,
still
I
have them.
have one band somewhere.
So I have the other.
You are the other. Okay.
And so you remember we took out the chips from the gyrometer and all of those things.
With some Canadian product, right? It's like something that
yeah,
goes
yeah,
around
yeah.
the
So it
wrist.
was
You
basically.
could control your
I remember a
mouse
friend
and
of mine
stuff.
used to use it to control drones.
Drones, yeah.
So he would like flip his hand and the drones would move. So we had. I remember we put them into a chip and we tried to like record it. And we had a guy working with us who I think then found something else and he had to leave. So it was in that phase. And I remember, and I was also getting busy with other things I was doing. And I joined the consulting firm by then. So we weren't actively doing it. To think of it, even at that time, I had the side hustles going on. I think looking back, I think that's so key to growth. And I remember meeting you. I met Karthik.
Yeah.
One of the days, your co-founder there.
Yeah.
And I remember coming and meeting the second time, and he showed me what he's working on,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Fuck."
Yeah. That's why I joined.
Exactly,
Yeah.
I know, and you said, "Hey, this is too good an opportunity." I said, "I completely get it. I understand, like your the value." And I had a question back then, which I think even your VCs asked, which is, yeah. So from there, anyway, just tell what the product was, and let's talk about that first.
So, well, the problem that we were trying to solve is contextual commerce. What we discovered was the context is generated on one app, but you end up transacting on another application. For example, on WhatsApp, you'll be like, hey, let's catch up today at 12. But to meet you at 12, I have to open Uber and then make a booking, right? Like we were trying to see how we could unify or fly in the right app in order for you to make the transaction or for it to happen. So we had an SDK that sat in one app, and we had these transaction apps building something called micro apps, and we could render the micro apps wherever our SDK was sitting. So, and you can render infinite number of micro apps. So one of our clients was Holiday IQ. So there's context of making a person travel from point A to point B, or a person's interest to travel on Holiday IQ. And ClearTrip was one of our clients who built a micro app that sat inside Holiday IQ. So if you see something in Goa, in one click you can book a flight ticket to Goa rather than closing the app, finding a travel app, opening it, entering the data, and then doing the transaction. So that was what AppsFly was meant to do.
And I don't know the details of what happened after. I remember you raised capital.
Yeah, we raised capital. Fun thing, we were chasing investors, nobody was coming. When one investor came, investors were chasing us, and we were like picking the right investors. We got through Startup Chili program. It was fun. I think the product was really good. I think we were solving a genuine problem. The challenge was we had to work with companies which had APIs exposed to even build out this product. And in India, other than travel companies, very, very few companies had exposed APIs. So, and most of the companies that we spoke to found out it was a good strategy, but something that we want to maintain in-house. So we got more acquisition offers than more clients. What was also happening on the other side was we had AppNext, which was, I don't know if you've heard of AppNext.
No.
Okay, in the ad tech space. And they found our product very exciting. Imagine a publisher who monetizes through ads.
Right.
Every time a person clicks the ad, leaves the publisher's product. What we were telling them is you can retain the users and still earn more because of an affiliate partner and not just because a person's clicking on the ads, right? So they found it really exciting. They were looking to work with us. We got Booking.com, and we were doing a POC with AppNext and Booking.com. In that mix, we were burning money, fundamentally building the product, meeting a lot of clients, only to realize that every client that wants to work with us either wants to acquire us or because they don't have exposed APIs.
Right.
So I think we were too early in the market, and I don't think the market has moved much in our favor even right now. Companies like Urban Company, Flipkart, Amazon, they have affiliate links, but they don't have APIs that are exposed outside. They want users to come into their...
Is it different in the West?
Not really.
Okay, so then
we should have. Like Uber in the West, in fact, even Uber here provides you with APIs and stuff like that. But it is not. I think because the technology wasn't distributed enough where you can have one app into the other, it wasn't prioritized within product companies to look at that as a strategy. They
Right.
looked at the only way to monetize is to get users into your environment to monetize. And we were fundamentally changing that within a company, right? We're saying that you need to go where the users are rather than making the user come to you. So um, it hasn't, the industry hasn't gone in that
Right.
direction. But what is really happening is unification of interfaces, right? Like um, I can talk to one AI which can do 5 different things for me, right? It can open up a calculator, calculate, then browse the internet, pull some information, fill up an Excel sheet just through a voice interface. So unification is happening, but at a very different way than I had envisioned it back in 2016, 2017.
Interesting. And then obviously you got an offer from Walmart.
Walmart Labs, yeah, they acqui-hired the team. I the founders were also given the option, but they were looking at mostly the engineering team to be a part of the continuity of this product within Walmart. And that's when I moved to ShopX. ShopX had just raised some capital, and I was very well connected to the founder. Plus, I had built a product that got them.
Yeah. And you also had a
Investors.
feather in your cap in terms of acquisition of
Uh,
Appsfly.
Again, I wouldn't, nothing very fancy, right? Like it was an acqui-hire, not an acquisition. So it's not like we walked out with a lot of money. It was just some bonuses here and there for us to
Right.
feel happy and stuff like that. I learned a lot though. I did a SaaS product for the first time. Most of the products that we were building were build and deliver, and I don't see the end of how users are using it. I understood how deep tech works and the challenges it comes with. And although Fufis was like my baby, where like every person went through me, in a company like AppsFly, there were 4 co-founders. I think overloaded number of co-founders. I think 2 to 3 is good. And each one of us have ambition, a drive, but in different directions, right? Like I was looking at making it a marketplace. Somebody was looking at making it into a development tool. So and none of it was a right or wrong answer. It was the market was supposed to tell us where it's going to stick. So the entire year and a half, all we did was throw spaghetti on the wall, see what stuck, and then that gave us the next step to move forward or not to
Right.
move forward.
Was transition after Appsfly easy? So until then you were a founder, right?
Ah, yeah. Yeah, I was. I've never worked for somebody. Went into ShopX. They just moved into WeWork. So suddenly, fancy office, earning 4x what I was earning as a founder. More cushy. Saturdays were off. Nobody spoke to me on a Saturday. I'm like, very surprised. But I think what was fun was I was building a team there and I was building products there. So I think that was consistent. Never did it to, like, being a founder wasn't the thrill. The thrill was building something that wasn't built before. So
So do you? This is interesting. I've never asked you this. Between being a founder versus building something, or maybe doing it together, however you look at it, like, is there a difference that you see, and you enjoy this side of it which you have
yeah,
purely left to build?
actually I do. So I have a lot of people who ask me, "Do you ever plan to start another company?" And for me, unless I find a painful enough problem that I think I can solve, I wouldn't start another company. Being a product manager is somewhat great because you're more closer to the problem, and aspects like HR, finance, funding, investor, electricity not being there. Like all of those menial aspects are not in your vicinity, like,
Right.
and you're not focusing on them. So you are given a problem or you're given a goal, and you're given a team and you have to go solve for it. I find that journey very exciting.
Interesting. Got
Yeah.
it. And do you think some are there more founders like this? For example, would there be more people who are probably who haven't explored that side of themselves because they're so deep into the founder mode? Let's call it that.
Yeah. I think, okay, so I went to Christ College and I asked some guest speaker there, and I asked people, how many of you want to start your own? How many of you want to be your own boss? Right? And a few people raised their hand. I said, how many of you want to work with them? Right? Very few hands. Right? So I fundamentally think that a lot of people who are founders are running on ego. But if they are intelligent with ego and are able to deliver, well and good. Right? But I don't see that mix too often in the market that keeps a company sustainable for a long time.
Right.
Right. I building a company is definitely a team game, and you have to let go of your ego. In fact, every person we hire as founders, the person who comes in should be setting a new benchmark, right, within the company. You can't hire somebody who is only going to listen to you. Then you're not growing. You are the fastest
True.
in the company, and if you're investing in people, it should be elevating you. So
Correct. Right. What's your take on the latest founder mode craze, which is like going wild on LinkedIn? So someone sent it to me. A friend of mine was from the tech background, so I'm assuming he got it from his friends, and
right.
I'm assuming you read that before as well. Brian Chesky's.
PMs
Yeah.
being more product marketing.
No, so I'll send you the link if you haven't. But I think this guy Paul Graham put it out on the first.
Okay.
So it's
might have
basically
skipped
a story of Brian Chesky from Airbnb, how he I'll give you a summary of it, which is basically during COVID, Airbnb had to redo a bunch of things, which they did. And now they're very cash flow positive. It's one of the few companies that are very, very strong in Silicon Valley with with good bank balance, let's put it that way.
Right.
So what he did was he got into the areas of optimization that they had to do himself, understood the ground level realities, and then got really hands on to rebuild the new structure or system. And there are a lot of insights that come from that particular extract, which is a lot of C-suite executives who are hired are good at managing upwards and not downwards, right?
Yeah.
We understand that.
Yeah.
And sometimes when a founder does get involved on the nitty-gritties, it can seem like it's very confusing, very controlling, and very toxic. And I mean, some of the employees could have that kind of a point of view because they see it in their vision and they want to sort of implement it. And then there are sometimes casualties too.
Right.
And then at the end of this article, he talks about how some founders are built for founder mode and some aren't.
Yeah.
The problem comes when those who aren't think that's the excuse for doing things your way, and then try to enforce that on people, and then that spills over.
Yeah.
So the proof is in the long term.
Yeah.
Right. The results that someone derives through it. Yeah. So Airbnb, for whatever said, in the company's interest, it made it work. So, and similarly, there is so he compares Brian Chesky's thought process to what Jobs did, and Jobs had this philosophy saying, Apple will only focus on that many products at once that I personally can give bandwidth to.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Yeah.
So very different, but I think it's, again, world of business has no formula. So what works.
Yeah, actually quite. So I remember listening to Masters of Scale, and this is when Airbnb was coming out of COVID, right?
Right.
And they were trying to go IPO, and he was doing like a roadshow, and so I think people like to work around Brian Chesky, right? Like even if he I think what he realizes is thanks to his position, people will follow. If he does something on the ground, people realize how important it is, right? I think that's his way of working. He's definitely not doing everything himself, right? But what he's doing is he's trying to emphasize to the company that those optimizations are critical, and if he doesn't go in and gets his own hands dirty, people might not realize the impact or the importance of that optimization. When it comes to Steve Jobs, like ego drove him, but at the same time, he was one of those outliers which also knew what a good quality product wants and what users want, right? I think his ego took a step back when he realized what users would be wowed about, right? And then worked backwards from there. And the world needs to be filled with different kind of people, right? There shouldn't be a playbook for success. 100%. It can't be a playbook for success. So give it a try. I think like the intent is that everybody should get out of their comfort zone and try to create value or solve a problem that nobody's addressing.
True. And personally as a founder, I've experienced both. There are times when I've had to get involved and do some things myself, and there are times when I'm hired or delegated to somebody. Right. And both has yielded success, and both at times has yielded failure.
Yeah.
And I think it's a function of just observing and figuring out the pathway to it. So a lot of it is self-awareness and discovery, to be honest.
It's very situational as well, right? Like depending on who you plan to give the work to, how much do you trust it, the person's capability, or you might be wanting to set an example or a new benchmark in that function. So you might put your hands in and get started.
From a tech culture perspective, are there things that you look, because you've been a founder, and you see and you think, okay, it can get better, can be different, can be changed? Are there things that of that nature?
Actually, so experience working with InstaWork really elevated my product game. Um, the VP of InstaWork, ex Uber, Microsoft, comes from really good product companies. He spoke to every PM in his calendar. He used to maintain what is his ask from every PM. What is, if I have a challenge, he notes it down and he addresses it. And this he did it with every PM. So um, the kind of support that I received from leadership was phenomenal. Um, Working in other Indian companies, I was kind of told what the founder wants to get done, right? Or go in this direction and solve this problem. At InstaWork, the CEO created a vision document, um, and he said, "This is what we should be doing, and this is what we could have done, but we're not doing." And he floated this one-pager document to everybody in the company. About 700 people in the company, 300 of them are commenting, objecting on the document. So the kind of people he got were not just they'll say yes to whatever he wants, right? There were 300 of them that are challenging the current document. Post 2 weeks of that document being out, an alignment was made across the company. Folks were given clear directions, like pure KRs to go follow. And the only job of my leadership was to make sure, empower me to get it. Right? If I had to talk to the CEO of Staples Center, I could directly call. I didn't have to talk to HR, my boss, nothing. There was a accessibility to me to like reach out to anybody for me to go talk to if I have to solve that problem. So they entrusted me with the problem. They backed me up completely, and they gave me a dedicated team to go solve that problem. And not just me, every PM, every pod was functioning that way. And when you look at when I asked him, how do you think I should do this? He said, I don't know. You're the closest to the problem. You need to go solve for it. Right. So now taking that contrast to Indian companies, it's where, yes, the founder did come up with a vision. Yes, the founder has taken the company to a certain level, but they do not lean on other people to like take it forward.
Right.
They still want to be the end decision maker, right? And not the enabler. So, and I think if you look at how we've grown up, right? Parents teach the kids. We go to school, the teacher is supposed to tell the kids, right? Go to college, there's always somebody guiding us. So I think anybody who becomes a founder, most of them who become a founder, they try to emulate their teachers, their parents, right? And all they have done is directed or taught somebody else, right? When you look at how independent kids get in Western countries, they are told to make decisions very early. They feel the repercussions of that decisions, right? And because we are scared of taking decisions, we don't end up in an environment where we are risk taking. And this is the product culture or the team culture that needs to change, because we are living in such a dynamic environment that requires us to not one person thinking, but if you have a team of 30 people, all 30 people should be thinking, right? And how do you build that environment is like a personal challenge that I'm doing. So I mentor a lot of folks on product, and my secret motive is to make sure that the environment they go work in is more collaborative. And a product manager is mostly told to come up with ideas, and I keep telling them that it's not your problem. You should not be the one coming up with the idea. You should be very close to the problem, understand the users, and work with your team to come up with a solution, right? Like, don't go to your engineer and say, here are 10 Jira tickets, start working, right? Go to him and say that this user is feeling this problem and there are other users like this person. How do you think we should solve that problem? And let that be an open conversation so that everybody feels a part of the solution and not just told to build the solution.
Right. I can draw some parallels to our work too, where there's a lot of instruction given from top down of outcome, and not enough emphasis on process or how you
Right.
want to curate. And funny enough, in the communication business, it's less to do with the result actually.
Right.
It's more to do the process, because that's what really affects the consumer, right? When you see your communication. So we are also going through that, where I feel in our line of work, it's becoming more like tech and product, where it's becoming more outcome. And I feel it's a lot to do with the environment we're in.
Yeah.
Because for most companies now, it's become growth at all costs. So then you prioritize result probably as a function and not the process. Maybe there's a bit of that. Sometimes I look at it and I feel that way. I mean, I'm not in the system, but I
So-
feel tech does influence the others.
Yeah, yeah, actually, I wanted to ask a marketer, right? Like, what value is an impression giving you,
Nothing.
right? Like, for me, from a product perspective, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But, like, I'll tell you, I'll give you, uh, there is a good answer to this, which I don't know, right? You go on inner ring road and you see these hoardings and they have the same message, right? And it's mostly Airtel or like one of these telcos. And I don't know why they're spending money on it. Right, like, but there is somebody who's had a rationale to spend money, go get it fixed and stuff like that, right? Why do you think they're doing that?
So I have my theories to it. I'll break it down. So the first thing is, there's an old saying in marketing which is, half my money that I'm spending is working. I don't know which half. It's a very old saying, right? Because from an offline world where the world was non-measurable. Now what's happened is, it's everything has become metrics driven. So as a function of which, you are all about reach and impressions and not impact. Because how do you track impact, right? Because people don't see eye to eye on impact. And there's this famous talk I listened to of Piyush Pandey where he talks about this, and he says, you say I've reached 2 million. How did the 2 million feel? I want to know that. And that's the problem that we have, because I think it comes down to not wanting to take the trouble of changing the environment you're in. And people, it's the same, and people say, oh no, that's not the reason. People are always trying to find better ways. I don't think so. And I think you can draw parallels to human behavior on other things also. Some people are in relationships that don't work and they're happy staying there forever, right? There's a lot of that no one wants to take the pain and the consequence, right? Going through the consequence of the outcome is kind of taxing for people, so they don't want to do it. So whatever system was set up, they're happy continuing and following it. And they just because, and the other big problem is also that, at least I see this in marketing, which is, people don't want to stick to a job for more than 2 years at best. And I have a problem with that, because if you're trying to communicate to consumers about your product or about your service, there's a cycle generally. There's an up, down, and it works in cycles, right? If you're not spending enough time, at least in observing cycles and patterns, and are only scraping through the surface level and going to another category or another product or another brand, whatever it might be, your learnings aren't deep enough. And in communication and marketing, unfortunately, the cycles are a little slow. It does take you 2 years, 3 years sometimes to get to the depth of it. It isn't like tech where data is available instantly, right? A lot of it, you get the data, like we just spoke of. You're getting impressions. You don't know what it means. So you need to spend time to decode it. And there's not enough of that happening. So there's a culture that's set in, which is about moving fast, doing things fast, and doing things to check a box rather than to actually measure. And I think that I don't have an answer to how to change it, to be very honest. I see examples in the market of people who are standing out and doing different things. Like I think the Whole Truth Foods, I keep bringing the example. I think they're fucking fabulous, right?
From the product to the positioning.
Everything, right? And you feel a sense of, like, we're sitting here and talking about it and we feel something about it. And I'm not saying it because they showed me their ads. It is the collective experience of what I've had consuming all touch points, right? And when people, and this is the problem, I think, in communication, where people have now forgotten what the word brand means. And
you're right. Absolutely, yeah. People think it's a logo.
It's so, there's a famous book called Zag. It's called Brand Gap, actually. It's a fabulous book. It's the #1 book I'd recommend to anyone who wants to learn brand.
Get my hands on that.
I have a PDF version. I'll send it to you as well. It talks about how the concept is simple. When everyone's zigging, you have to zag. That's what creates positioning, essentially, right? And that's what Whole Truth did. Everyone said, we're healthy, healthy, healthy. And Whole Truth said, screw, like, fuck you. Like, you aren't healthy. We are actually healthy. And they became the outlier that way. And that's a positioning. You take that because you find the category going in a certain direction. And funny enough, I found the Whole Truth when I was working on yoga bars.
Oh, wow.
When I was sitting with an extended team and we were brainstorming and we were looking at a competition, and I got this bar from this company called And Nothing Else.
And Nothing Else,
Right? And then the modus operandi in a client meeting is always to trash the product. And I tried, but I couldn't. I flipped through and everything seemed very nice, and it seemed to be in the direction. I looked at the social, and for me, the first instinct for me to do for any brand is look at the social media, and that says a lot about how the organization thinks. Pretty ironic considering we don't do much on virality social media. I need to probably change that. But I looked at that and I felt, okay,
They know what they
the
do.
direction is solid.
Solid.
Someone who knows their shit is handling things, and it seems fine. So a brand essentially is a sum of all emotions you experience in a transaction with that particular entity or person. So it could be anything. It could be the
So
smallest.
is someone crafting it with that longevity in mind?
I don't think today's brands do that because they get started with the business and then the brand comes after. And I'm culpable of that too, because also because I thought B2B we don't need to do it, and you do. So I do a lot of this podcast sessions with marketers, and we keep talking about brand books and brand philosophy. You need that to scale, but you don't need that to get started. And only as an internal brand you can sort of define at what point you do it. So there are examples like Zomato who probably did it. So I call it the inverted pyramid system, which is traditionally brands are built up, top down. So you craft your purpose, your positioning, and then at the end of it, your marketing activities start based on the foundational layers you're built on top.
Got it.
Right? So it starts with value systems, your personality, mission, vision, all of those things, and then marketing is just an enabler.
Sometimes it's just text, right? Like, I'm very curious how that gets translated into something more tangible.
Exactly. So that's also a problem, because I feel in the world of brand, unless and until you have sat and looked through 5-6 different categories of brands and gone deep into their brand books and looked at it, you'll not be able to understand how they look at it. It's as simple as there's a reason that Salman Khan does the kind of films that he does, and there's a reason Shah Rukh Khan did the kind of films he did. Because they were trying to go after a unique TG, and it is a positioning. Salman was macho before anyone else was macho. And then extension of that is to be associated with a thumbs up, taste the thunder, right? But whereas a Shah Rukh was more the quintessential, the lover boy and the hero, right? And then as a function, he had associated with those kind of products around him.
Right.
So you craft your brand and your positioning. So I don't think in India as a culture, we know how to do that. Only people who have ever done that in the showbiz. And I think that's also somewhere debatable now because I think they've gone too deep into it, unfortunately.
Right.
But I think it's a cultural issue, much like, for you to learn. And even I remember when we started working, we would only handle the digital side of things. So we didn't need to look at the brand.
Right. You're just getting guidelines.
Exactly,
that much,
right?
Yeah.
So I started to look at people who make the guidelines and started to speak to them. I had Puma's guidelines at one point. I had Corner Houses, someone worked on that. I had Titan, Fast Track. All of these companies will share it with you because you need to be learning it and reading up. And then you would scan it and then you would understand. And then it starts making sense to you as to why they do it in the way. And there's no formula for it. It's not like a certain system will help you, but it gives you insight and then you get better. So I think brand marketing is something that I haven't seen too many people who have spent less than 7 to 10 years in this field who know it. It's impossible. So that's where the problem comes. So people jump every 2 years
and
or 1 year.
You're not able to.
Yeah, you're not going to able to go deep. And I know how corporates function, wherein at a brand manager level, unless you're an absolute seeker with who's spending extra time on your own, and this is another thing in marketing. I keep telling the team too that, and it's unfortunate, but it is a state of the industry. If you don't spend additional hours, and if you don't do off-the-job training, there's almost zero chance you'll grow, right? And it's just the state because the information is so unstructured. So coming back to Zomato did that well in terms of being a distribution-first brand, which is, they said we'll be heard first, we'll be spoken about, and then they had this formats of tweets or those Insta posts, which basically, were very good copywriting essentially. They built their brand on top of that. They did their first TVC and things of that nature very late. So they didn't really, in the early days, define their brand. Or they, again, first principles, they defined it in their own way. Now, Dunzo copied it. Right? But Dunzo as a business didn't work, unfortunately. And I don't think they were able to translate that into their mainline advertising when they did their ads. I looked at a lot of their ads and felt it looked like Swiggy, it looked like other brands. It had a category code. And that's the problem when you go to some of the agencies also, because they are catering to categories and they have a code. It becomes easy for you to...
It's like templatized almost.
So that's the other problem. So I think there's a whole host of that. I think the problem begins with people having diverse orientation into marketing and brand, and then them thinking that is the right way, and not being willing to collaborate. So if you're willing to collaborate, and a lot of good clients, good brand managers are that way, they say, okay, we have an understanding, I believe you have it, let's try to work together. And that helps. So I've had a lot of brands I work with tell that we don't want to hire a celeb.
Yeah.
because they believe it doesn't work. And there are a lot of other brands who come and tell us we need a celeb or else we can't do this idea. So they prioritize a larger budget for the talent
Talent, right.
and lesser for production. So there are different ways in which
I
you do
also
it.
think it's slightly product specific, right?
Yeah.
Like if Notion went and picked up Salman Khan for it, like not like they're going to get more users, right?
Correct.
So,
True. That's also there.
yeah,
So again, I think it depends on. So to be very honest, a good product solves half the problem.
yeah,
A bad product with good advertising gets exposed. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to think on those
Yeah.
lines and understand. So
in
yeah.
your so you have Bill Gates
Yeah.
behind you.
Not Gates. That's Sir Alex Ferguson.
Oh, so Ferguson.
That's
Okay.
Jobs.
Oh yeah, okay. Google and Apple. Okay, so he sold MS DOS
Yeah.
to IBM before having DOS.
Yeah.
So he positioned a product
Yeah.
and then got the
Hustler.
product. Do you think it's still a good strategy to first position a product and then build it? Because if you build a product, then positioning it gets harder, in my opinion, right?
True.
Like, so do you think position needs to come first before
So
you?
now that I know what positioning is, I would tell that if you can position it first, like I'm thinking of something as what I would do next, apart from virality. It's brewing in my head. And I'm only thinking, what is my first line that I will tell people? Right? And I'm trying to think from that perspective, which is a blend of what the mission vision has to be and how I want to position it.
Got it, okay.
So I think for me, because I have that knowledge, I would say yes. But to somebody who doesn't have that knowledge, it's hard. And I would say don't spend time, because I don't think positioning is something you can pick up on the go.
Right.
It takes years for you to craft and hone. And in the early days, I would speak to these brand strategists and I would ask them, hey, can you teach me? And they would say, hey, it's not, you can't
Yeah,
teach.
it's not that.
And I thought they were arrogant and they didn't want to impart knowledge, because I felt a lot of the artistic, creative strategy minds were like that. But then I realized as I learned it, that that's the true nature of the craft.
Right.
You can't teach.
Right.
And it's like trying to become a good filmmaker or a director or an artist, right? You can't just learn it. It's a craft thing you have to keep doing and doing and doing. So I would, to answer, say, get the positioning right first. It solves for a lot. And I think don't make it rigid. I think there's a problem there also.
Yeah.
Some people, when they think positioning...
Or experiment with it, right?
Yeah.
Take a cohort
sure.
and say that, or if I meet anybody who's this person, I'm going to position it this way. For these people, I'm going to position it.
I think the biggest problem in India, and what I've noticed, is everybody wants the entire market.
Yeah.
Right? Always.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that is that you possibly can't position your product the same way for everybody.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to let go, because I think, again, ARPU, average revenue per user, is so little that it doesn't make sense to go into a niche.
Yeah.
And as a function of which, then you try to build for everybody, and then you're not building for anything.
Yeah. Completely. Even learn this through mistakes. Even where I'm currently working, it's we don't get to choose our users. Right? I don't know if a 16-year-old is buying a phone, their first phone, or is it a 60-year-old mother who's been gifted a phone that she has to use. I don't get to pick this user. So how do I position my product without me defining the kind of users I'm looking at?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and funny enough, the volume approach works in India for some reason. Or it seems to work.
Depends again on the brand and product.
Yeah.
Right? Like like a SaaS tool would be very specific. Like, but Pulse Candy is possibly meant for entire India.
But I think those are categories that only work on volume. You can't otherwise make it work.
What's the most fun project you worked on, and why?
For me, I think most fun projects are things that have elevated my personal learning as a function of the organizations. So I think making TVCs for the first time were very interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, very, very...
Where did you shoot?
Bombay.
You went to Bombay.
Yeah. Nice. So we got a production house. We wrote scripts internally, pitched it, got a production house. Then we had to find actors. So, I did a film with Johnny Lever and his family. Very humbling experience. So he was my chief guest in one of my school programs years ago, right? 2007 something. So I had an interaction with him then. And then I got to get him to work on an ad. So first time I met him, like, officially. I mean, I have actually taken a photo with him when I was at school, but I don't think that counts. So I met him this time and I went up to him and he's like, he greeted me like, hello, sir. I was like, fuck. He's calling me a sir, So it's very humble, very down to earth. So it was very interesting to see that side. And I think the level of professionalism and how they do that. And we had a problem with the script because we realized that it's shooting, it was all approved, but we weren't able to cap it within the time limit.
Oh yeah.
So,
I can
so I had to
understand.
go up to him, and then he very nicely worked with us to reduce it, and said, "I'll say this instead of this. What do you guys think?" I was like, works. So that was a great experience. I think that was
Yeah.
fun because of the nature of it. But otherwise, yeah, I think there's a lot of new things that we've done here as a
Right.
function of being self-taught as an organization. So it's been great fun. First product campaign we did, we launched OnePlus 7 when it first
Oh
came
yeah,
out,
I
7 and
remember.
7 Pro. Great experience. That worked on Cred before the product went viral because of the
I was one of the
campaigns.
beta users doing
Yeah,
of Cred. I think it was late December, November, December
yeah.
of, I don't remember which year they launched. And I went and told my entire ShopX team about Cred. They all downloaded, and then 6-7 months later they had the referral program start. And I'm like, damn it, I could have made a
I think we worked on it while the referral was there. I think this is one of those initiatives running. But yeah, that was fun. Very different as a product. Yeah, any new category. We had a tobacco client. Like they sell cigars, right? So cigars are banned from advertising because tobacco is not allowed in India,
Right.
and Google as a platform does not promote. Right? It'll pull it down, and so will Facebook. So you have to have a very different approach to brand building on that because distribution is a problem there.
right.
So yeah, that was interesting. That was challenging. We did that for a while.
Isn't like the most fun stuff when there are a lot more constraints in place?
Yeah,
Yeah, like coming out of those constraints.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like I want to take that insight and see how do you make a person's job more challenging.
so I think that way. I don't know if the present generation always thinks that way because I feel
A lot has come easy to them.
yeah, I think there's a lot of time.
We can speak for another hour talking
Yeah,
about how.
tell me this. So you and I will resonate on it because I think we're seekers, right? We seeked out for more information at all times and try to learn and try to challenge ourselves, and we are off that mold. I think it's also a little bit of founder DNA and stuff, but I don't think everybody has it. Everyone doesn't need to have it, but I think some jobs you should do your own research before taking up certain jobs, and you need to understand what are the market factors at play. You need to know what your competition is.
Yeah.
If not, you'll be disappointed.
Simple. I have people like, I'd like to work for your esteemed organization. Please have a look at my resume, pass it to the HR team. I'm like, this is cut, copy, pasted, and the person is expecting me to take my time out to work for you, right? Like, how did you come to accepting this, like personally, right? Like, so, and I'm rude, I'm ruthless. Okay, I'm like, which esteem organization are you talking about? Let's start with that. And then, how much are you going to pay me? What is my this thing? And the person's like taken aback because they have sent it to 100 people. Few of them just ignore. Few of them will be like, okay, and stuff like that. So, the current generation kind of needs to understand competition. Like, who are they competing against?
Yeah.
And they might be really creative. I think what the opportunity that's been given to them right now is there's better infrastructure, more accessibility, there's good, easy mentorship available, and they have leveraged it.
But I think they've over leveraged it. I think there's too much.
Now it's become comfortable, right? You
No,
think?
no. I also think there's too much information. Sometimes there's so much information you don't have action. I think there's a lot of that. It's like everyone's advising you. Like one guy's saying do this, one guy's saying do that,
Right.
another guy is saying this, and when you're young, you think there's a formula for success, right? Then you don't know what option to choose. So there's a lot of that also that goes on. So, but I guess it's evolution. I think they'll toughen up.
Yeah, they'll toughen up.
Market will.
There'll be another generation to threaten their jobs,
Yeah,
and
100%.
yeah,
I think the market's the ultimate
yeah,
player, right?
Equify, yeah,
It'll punch you in the face like nobody else does. So yeah, everyone will learn from that. But
yeah, dude.
what's next? Like, what do you? What is that one thing you're working on? You're racking your brain on.
AI, like, and it scares me how the world would be 5 to 6 years from now. I don't think so. A lot of people are prepared, aware, making changes in their lives to embrace what's coming.
You think it's gonna affect employment?
Very much. Like I don't write well, and I've never coded. Now I do both incredibly well, right? And very soon, what I bring to the table, AI will be able to do much better than.
True.
Right? It's right now I think around 150 IQ, 160 IQ. Give it 2 years, it's going to be smarter than any human alive. It's going to be more creative. I think artists are going to get hurt. They don't accept it. I met an artist who said, no, but when I make music. I'm like, you make music for you, but from a listener's perspective, I'm going to be given music that I need right now, made tailor made for me, right? And if Spotify turns a switch and starts giving you AI generated music based on what you've already heard, they don't have to pay their artist. They make more money for themselves, which is good business. I think uh, music will be a shared experience, but we'll stream more AI music. So that's going to hurt a lot of artists. Um, Engineers are going to find it really hard in the next 2 to 3 years if a prompt can create an entire end-to-end SaaS tool personalized for me. So it's going to bring disruption across multiple industries. I have two backup jobs that I'm working on. One is a masseuse. I'm thinking not many people would want a machine to touch them. So I think a masseuse or a forest conservator. Like these are my two backup jobs when AI takes over. Yeah.
Yeah, scary. Now I think the way you're thinking, yeah, I'm just a believer that human beings are going to be inefficient and slow on the curve of adoption,
Yeah.
much like most things we are. And then there's a window
Which
of
means
opportunity there.
impact. There's an opportunity, but the impact is going to be higher, right?
True.
Like, let's take humanoid robots with AI, right? A lot of companies are now getting into it. You've got intelligence available. You need them. You need to put them in a hardware that is more durable than humans and more flexible than humans, and it can do majority of the work. Imagine construction, right? I can get 20 robotic thing to start building construction, and it is programmed and it does everything what a human can do, but 10 times better and more efficiently. It needs 4 hours of rest to recharge, and 20 hours it'll work without complaining, without getting drunk, without getting hurt, all of that, right? So what's going to happen to all those people who've been working? From a business perspective, it just makes more sense. And the business model would be I lease it out. Like I lease out 20 robots, build my building, and then send these robots back to wherever, right? So there's going to be massive change. People are right now not adapting, and I think that's what's scaring me, right? And if we don't, so okay, I'll just shoot myself into the future. Okay, 2045, our consciousness will be on a computer. That means we won't need our human body to live. We will become explorers. So AI and my consciousness can take manifest in a pen drive and go to a different planet and 3D print myself into the right kind of robot, and I can go explore a new planet. That's the world I want to see. Um, I just need to be rich enough to be able to be the first few to get my consciousness uploaded. And right now I'm worried that I won't be rich enough because the next 10, 15 years of me being employable or being able to work is going to be taken away from AI. So that is my fear. And if nobody else has this fear, happy to debate it till they start having that fear. Because I think it's going to be very real. That
But do you
things
think
will
don't you
change.
think new jobs will come because
What
other jobs
job?
are taken? I don't know. Like for example, let's look at podcasting as one, right? Let's look at it this way. Just as a
Take two hot AI avatars,
yeah,
make them talk to each other, and make an entertaining show.
true. But then also then there's a layer of brand building required, which I don't think humans are. At least there's enough supply of that talent. Let's put it that way. Like for
Brand.
example, I don't know if you know this podcast called Call Me Daddy. It's number 2, I think, in Spotify.
Okay.
So after Joe Rogan Experience.
Okay. What did they talk about?
Just life, sex,
Life, okay, yeah.
sexual health, all of those
Okay,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
Anything under the sun, under these umbrellas. But that's working because of obviously they found a niche, and then there a lot of brand building, repetitive work on that. I'm not saying it can't be done.
Right.
It can, but at the
What do you
same
mean
time,
brand building of what? The podcast host?
yeah,
The type of content?
yeah, combination of it all.
They're already
some,
virtual influencers in place, right? If they host a podcast, people will listen.
But then, do you think if at that level, then does it get demonized? AI, saying if it's taking away livelihood, and then would there be a sense of
And okay,
dissatisfaction
so
towards it?
we look at evolution, right? Today we have dogs as pets. Humans are not pets yet, right? Like we want to feel that we are the most special, we are the most intelligent, we matter. That's what we humans want to protect, right? But if you look at market or evolution, something better is always going to come in
Yeah.
and erode the past, right? And we have created what's going to erode us. And as much as we want to fight it, also need it, right? We want breakthroughs in energy, we want breakthroughs in medicine. So we are going to put the pedal on this new way of intelligence that is now going to be more accessible to all of us, right? Education is going to take a huge hit. I am I'm trying to create content that my house help can use using ChatGPT and get educated that the teacher is not able to educate. Like, all I need to do is make that person curious enough and show them how to use it. And now the world's knowledge is now accessible to this person, which was very, very difficult, right? And imagine the amount of talent that can come out if opportunity was given to them. And AI is going to do that. So am I going to take AI away from their lives? Definitely not. I'm going to push the pedal, right? Because it can really uplift their lives. And we'll never know when to take off that pedal. And I think it's going to go in a direction where we'll recognize that it's going to be helpful, it's going to be much better, and we need to be a part of it than against it. Yeah, I'm a little skeptical about it. A lot of people, I'll tell you what, I love animals, I love nature, I love all of that, right? But um, that doesn't mean that this is not going to happen. That doesn't mean that we're not going to. Yeah.
Fair. There's some bits happening in the acting community where film community where the actors are now fighting against production houses having license to use their likeliness in AI.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing. I get it. They say protecting the interest and whatever. But do you think something that the regulations of that nature would come in on different fields?
Okay, I think the people who own the AI technology will pay through and will make sure the regulations are in their favor.
And the others who have to benefit from AI not getting implemented would probably fight it. And there's going to be a battle on that, right? If at all any. Traditional businesses.
So I'll tell you. So it all comes down to business, right? If you're able to create one podcast a week, versus I get AI that can create 10 different topics from the same virtual influencer on 10 different topics and can distribute it to a larger audience, who's going to get heard more, who's going to get, right? So it's eventually going to demotivate us, or it's not going to make it, like, it's not going to make economical sense for people to do what they're doing, because there's so much of content, so much of all of that already available, right? So it all comes down to the user who's willing to pay for it. Now, have you heard about Moobert or Brain FM or Sono.ai?
No.
These are apps that generate music.
Right. All right.
Right. And it's awesome. Listen to it. It's like, it's pretty good. Like, I wouldn't know. You can say sing like Elvis Presley, but sing a song to a friend who's celebrating his 50th birthday tomorrow. Right. And it'll generate a song, and you have something that you would hear 4 or 5 times after that. Right? Which means 4 or 5 times you do not hear an artist song, which means some artist is getting hurt.
So,
and these regulations are going to slow things down but not stop it.
Right. Fair. So, what professions do you think are truly safe? Sport for a while?
Yeah.
Before robot boxing takes over?
Like, sports for like I also think like an artist who's an entertainer as well will do really well. What I mean, like, look at Beyonce on stage. Like, there's an aura around that person. It's a shared experience. Or you take a band that plays and you have like people like, I think that can't be taken. That's very human. A sport is very human. It can't be taken away, right? Like, I think anything that's shared and human is very difficult for AI to take over. But if it is a one-on-one, it's going to be taken over.
So music, you think that way would...
So certain artists who can also be entertainers, yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Try this. Take 2 ChatGPTs, put them in front of you, tell them that go give me a joke one after the other, and once this is done, you give me a joke and just keep flipping it. For 30 minutes, I heard both of them give me one-liner jokes. Like one device completed, the other device started, one device completed, other device. And I was entertained for 30 minutes. This was a comedian's life now getting impacted, right? And I know the way I'm currently working, I put so much context into Claude and I'm able to generate really good PRTs, really good use cases. Like, what would have taken me a week, I'm doing in hours, right? And it's just a matter of time, then those hours also get disappeared. Like, I'm not needed.
True.
Yeah.
Funny, right? They thought humans could do art, film, music, and then you can do manual labor to AI.
Yeah.
It's reverse.
Yeah, it's reverse. Like, creativity, I think I read that there was a painting that came first in some competition, I think last year, and after the person won the award told that it was generated by AI. Right. So, and you can generate it, use 3D printer and use the brush and still get it painted. So it's art that is on canvas from a paintbrush, all of that, but it didn't come from a human's imagination, which was recognized by humans saying that this is beautiful. Right. So more of such examples will come out. Regulation will be, I think, will be late to the game. Firstly, the regulators, and even if they do, it's just a speed breaker. It's not a wall.
Got it. Interesting. Anyway, dude, I know you need to rush, so I won't hold
Yes,
you.
okay.
But we should do this again.
Yes,
Pick up
I
on
loved it.
where we left,
Yeah.
and we will take it forward. I hope you do more podcasts.
Yeah, good having a conversation. I thought I'd be nervous. I'm not as nervous.